in 2018. I feel like we talked about this story already, but I couldn't. Obviously, it's only been announced as news now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no. I think it's news. It'll get 2 more years to attack the knees of opposing props.
well, if you read the disciplinary committee findings, I'm sure they'll say it was with the bend of the knee, and so that's okay.
That's all right, apparently.
Yeah, well,
Anyway,
it has been traditionally, Alan. So I don't see why they're going to change the stance on that now. Seems to be how they judge these things. Well, the match review panel, actually, because it didn't get to the disciplinary panel, did it? Let's be fair. Anyway.
No. Anyway, moving on. Back rower Zebtair has signed a contract extension with St Helens, keeping him at the Super League leaders until the end of the 2020 season. The 34-year-old has made 77 appearances and scored 16 tries since joining the Saints.
I'd not updated that he scored yesterday or this week.
Congratulations, 17. After he joined from the Titans in 2017. That's a reasonable deal, isn't it?
I think the only question mark over Zebtair is at his age, how much was he worth? But then he showed at the weekend probably just how much he still is able to perform. So I
think it's reasonable. It's 12 months, isn't it? That's reasonable.
Yeah, the one question mark with that Saints squad is where is Bentley at? Where is Batchelor at? The two sort of signings they brought up from the lower leagues. And obviously they don't quite see Bentley ready yet to have a full season, so this is a good way to manage the squad.
Yeah, it sounds like. I'm sure it's a modest extension financially as well, so fair enough.
I heard on the grapevine a while ago that they'd offered him significantly less than he was currently on, and he was in talks with other clubs as a result of that, but obviously they've realised the value that he's offering still right now, and giving him a contract they thought was fair. Well, after his agent had probably tested his market value over the last month. Okay, Hull KR have landed Bradford Bulls head of youth John Bastian to head up the club's academy next season. Last week it was confirmed that the City of Hull Academy will be disbanded at the end of the current season, with KR and FC's academies going their separate ways ahead of the 2020 campaign, which also expects reserve grade to be mandatory. So I guess having your own academy means you can use some of those players in your reserves. Tom Andrews got in touch to say, superb appointment following on from the excellent news at the City of Hull Academy splitting. John is coming with a superb reputation and should set us up for the future. Well, you might be able to speak of his reputation, because most recently has been at Bradford, having previously been similar roles for Featherstone and notably at Warrington, I think.
Yeah. Extremely good reputationally. Obviously, it's by the nature of the role, it's a long-term investment that you're placing in these players. So you can't necessarily judge them by the players that are coming out immediately, because I'm trying to think when Bastian came into post. I think it might have been 2016, something like that.
It was before the League One season, certainly. So I'd say 15 or 16. Yeah,
15 or 16. But yeah, so what you're talking about is, some players will have come through that pathway, but well,
you're looking at people like Milnes, like Oakes, like Ryan, like Staunton, aren't you? Who are all Kirk.
And obviously we it's not just the players that are currently here, is it? It's players that we've also kind of moved, that have either been promoted into Super League kind of squads or players that are elsewhere. So I mean, we've never
that lad who's went to Huddersfield, who we talked about, whose name I forget. There was Joe Brown who came to Wigan, but now he's back at Bradford. He'll have maybe been in the early part of the Bastian era.
So I mean, we've never struggled to produce players. We've sometimes we've struggled to make them fit. But yeah, I mean, Bastian always, as I said, he came with a good reputation. He's still got that reputation. So I'm sure, obviously, KR need a level of structure. And when Bastian came into us, because of obviously the financial situation, there was nothing already there. So if you need somebody to come in and establish something, then he's probably a very good man to choose.
Yeah, it sounds that way. Right, a couple of later developing confirmed Super League news stories. French
Yeah.
halfback Theo Farge has signed a new 2-year contract with Super League leader St Helens. The 24-year-old scrum half joined Saints from Salford in 2015 and has since scored 26 tries in 90 games in all competitions in that dirty red V.
That wasn't on the press release, apparently.
That last bit, yeah, no,
That last bit
definitely was.
Oh dear.
Any view on that?
Can't really argue. You know, he's been part of that. The rotation that they've had in the halves. Obviously, he missed the weekend, but Saints hardly missed a beat. But he's one of those things. He's probably not on massive money.
Well, at 24 now is probably just about hitting his own as well, isn't he? Because he's been in the Super League for a long time. He was a teenage kid playing at Salford, weren't he?
Exactly. And to be fair, it's probably a slight upping of the deal, you would guess, but because to reflect his additional contributions that he's making from this year onwards, really. But yeah, no, he's a player that would have been on the radar of other clubs. So yeah, you can't argue with that.
There was reported interest from down under, wasn't there? So they've done well, I suppose, in that regard. And Leeds Rhinos captain, talking of reported interest from down under, Leeds Rhinos captain Callum Watkins is to leave the club at the end of the season over a salary cap dispute. 28-year-old in his 11th season with the Super League side moves with 2 years remaining on his contract. Rhinos director of rugby Kevin Sinfield said, "Plans for the squad and restrictions of salary cap have impacted this decision, and Watkins has said it was an incredibly tough decision as he was happy to remain until the end of his contract." We're hearing there was a fallout.
Yeah, well, the caveat to that, he was happy to leave if you were going to pay the man, and Leeds weren't happy to pay the man, despite the fact that they'd signed a contract, which is very questionable behaviour.
Yeah,
to be honest,
Leeds signed this contract with Callum Watkins when Callum Watkins was looking like an absolute
Callum Watkins
world-class player. It was, if I remember right, the deal was signed after the World Cup and before he got injured last season.
It's definitely before he got injured.
Yeah,
definitely.
well, yeah. But at that stage, he was looking like the world-class player on a consistent basis that his world-class talent levels always suggested he would become. But since the injury, which maybe, I don't know, is certainly not recovered from, that's for sure. Since he came back from the injury at the start of this season, he's not been the same player, has he? And regularly, how many times in match reviews have we had Leeds fans talking to us about the way Callum Watkins was performing? And Josh Moole's one of those people, and he got in touch. He said, "I have been critical about Callum this season, as I have with all aspects of Leeds. Him leaving was never the option that I wanted. I just felt like he came back too early, so needed time off, or his captaincy given to someone else." That's an interesting point you might want to comment on, Al. I think he would have been offended by a loan spell to recover, so it appears that he is going to move on, but it seems he has been pushed. Shame, but we have to deal with the decisions made. I wish him all the best and hope that he doesn't come back to bite us on the arse. Yeah, so a few key points in there. We all know his form's not been great. The captaincy. You can't have this happening midway through a season when you're fighting relegation and that being your captain, surely. That's going to have to pass on, isn't it, at this stage?
You would think so, but the question obviously is who would replace him as your captain? Who would you choose in that Leeds side that could show those leadership capabilities that would be a viable candidate?
Well, you'd be looking at Trent Merrin at the top of that list, I would suppose, but then his descent record this year says otherwise.
Well, this is what I mean. There isn't. It's not like there's they're bashing down the door with viable candidates, are they? So it's a difficult one, isn't it? In terms of what the team does. One thing that occurred to me was what I don't know is, or what we don't really know is how soon these murmurings started in terms of, well, we're not sure you're worth marquee money next year, Callum. In terms of on his way back from injury, is that part of his kind of mindset in these last, when people have been saying, well, he hasn't really been putting in, or he's looked a bit scared of contact or whatever. Is it that thing about, well, he fears that he might be looking for a new contract next year, and the last thing he wants to do is to get crooked before he signs something.
He has said he's looking for a new challenge as well as obviously a good deal elsewhere. So, do we think the NRL is calling for a player who they have inquired about before, NRL clubs, when he stayed at Leeds over other options? You know, the last time he signed a contract.
Well, I mean, you'd have to say that because, you know, Bateman came in as a massive surprise. They're obviously not watching. You know, they're not watching it every week. So he's got half a chance there. If all the reviewing is his performances at the World Cup and stuff like that, he's got half a chance of getting a deal somewhere.
He needs if he could get himself a deal, then work out his recovery a little bit more better than it's been so far, I suppose. Then. We can't fully write him off yet at 28, can we? I don't want to, because of how great he was. That sort of, I think 15 to early part of 18, even when Leeds weren't very good, he was.
Yeah, and I think I don't think you can underestimate the impact of any kind of contract dispute or ongoing discussions have been in terms of his performance level. So if you can get that sorted and get that out of the way, then we can have a chance to assess his recovery. You know, with access to more of the facts, I would guess.
To have accepted leaving, do we have to assume his agent has already kind of lined something up?
Well,
otherwise there would have been more.
Yeah, I would say he probably has lined something up because Watkins would be entitled. He would be entitled. You know, the contract is. Well, you've got to assume it's fairly watertight. So he'd be entitled, you know, even if he's just sitting on the bench, you'd expect to be entitled to something.
Yeah.
So you'd hope that he'd have some things lined up rather than just walking away, you know, shaking hands and saying thanks, but we'll see you later. So.
Yeah. From his point of view, be part of the Leeds side that stays up, and then move on with your legacy still kind of intact at that club, I would suggest. I would hope. Oh, yeah. I would think any fans who are having a go at Colin Watkins don't remember that basically when they were in the Super 8s, in the middle 8s, that first time around, was that the 2016 season? No, hold on. They won it in 2015, then they were in the qualifiers in 2016, and they won it in 2017, didn't they? That first time around in 2016, he was man of the match every single one of those games. I know he was playing down a level against the opposition, but he was playing out of position, was man of the match every single game at that stage. Yeah. And then he went on to have that brilliant World Cup where his defensive issues were solved as well after winning another grand final. So
I think there's to answer your question, I don't think we're writing him off at 28. Definitely not.
Yeah, I hope not either. Do you want to take us into the Championship?
Yep, so Barrow Raiders halfback Lewis Charnock has been banned for 8 games for a season-ending tackle on Sheffield Eagles' James Glover. Eagles centre Glover had to go off after 2 minutes into his side's 30-18 Championship win over Barrow. He suffered knee ligament damage and is expected to be out for a minimum of 9 months. Charnock, who began his career in Super League with St Helens, admitted a grade F charge, although I think it was reduced to a grade E, I think I've read. He's been fined £250 by the RFL in addition to his ban as well.
Well, if it's 8 games, 8 games is the maximum at grade E and the minimum at grade F.
Yeah,
grade F is 8 games to a period suspension. So like when, for example, Ben Flower got 6 months suspension, that was it. Translated to about 11 or 12 games, didn't it? It was that was a grade F. That was one of the relatively few grade Fs we see.
Yeah, I've read in League Express this week that because of the degree of contrition and the way that he'd kind of apologised for his actions, for a ninja tackle, I've seen it described as. I'm not quite sure what it was. I don't remember it. I have to.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You were at the Summer Bash. I haven't seen this at all because I was away in Barcelona that weekend. So I was hoping you'd have a memory of the incident from the Summer Bash.
This is the thing. It happened in the second minute. And I'm thinking that might have been the second minute where I was tweeting about the fact that Barrow were wearing Sheffield's kit. So I have to apologise. I don't remember the incident, so I haven't seen it.
So the ninja tackle.
The incident that sticks with. Yeah, the incident that sticks with me from this game is Matt James breaking his leg, but.